let's have some more fun and let's experiment with this type of vellum effect we can have, taking advantage of the translucency aspect of the material. What better? I guess there's a lot of other things, but I was thinking the lighthouse would be a really potentially spectacular illustration of what the material is capable of. Okay, all right. Now I'm stamping this Seaside Cove Small from its individual too, but I'm going to be using this nature set number 12 imagery, plus maybe one or two other images, I'm not sure yet. And in the Brilliance ink on this surface, it should dry just fine. Now, I'm finding that my Marvy pad dried fine too. Okay, now see over here, what I've done is I've wiped off some of that ink because I'm going to put the lighthouse right in that space, so I didn't want a hard line over in this area. That's all you have to really do with Stampscape stamps. I've designed everything to be able to overlap and blend with each other. So it's really, it's pretty important to overlap things, and I mean, you can mask things out carefully and position things carefully, but it's really not very conducive for the overall blending and seamless aspect of the composition process, layering images and blending them together, okay? So I've taken care of all that. Where people, I don't know, if they have a hard time kind of blending images, it's because they're still kind of caught in that habit of doing really careful positioning, placement, everything like that. And like I said, you can do it that way, but things tend to blend together a little bit easier, okay? If you just overlap things and not be too careful. I don't know, I mean, I guess maybe that's not the right word, being too careful. You can be careful, and still, have a very good results, but you can be a little bit more free form about it and not worry about certain aspects of stamp positioning, okay, by not having to, go through all of the tedium of traditional stamp placement, okay? These aren't outline designs, they're tonal. They're designed to blend and overlap together, okay? All right, so that is there. Now, let's go ahead and put a couple other images from the set in here. This vellum really, the images in general look a little bit softer slightly, okay, because when they dry, it's not as dark of an image as you would get on, let's say, cardstock. But that is not bad. I mean, I have a lot of high resolution in this design here. Super, tight detail. And this is pigment ink on that paper, but look at that. I don't know. It almost looks like it printed better on this paper than cardstock. I don't know how that would be, unless this is less porous than cardstock. I don't know. Maybe it is. But, Okay, so anyways, I'm placing some larger crashing rocks. This is called Rocks and Waves in the corner here. It's just going to kind of frame off the bottom of the composition. Okay. Now this is where it really fools me because I have all this overstamping on the side and I can see it right through there. So sometimes I think, oh my gosh, I got it on the front of the card. But it's really just, on the back of that. So I tend to go through, I don't know, in my first couple experiments, I go through a lot more blotter paper than I normally do. Okay. Let's just flip that around. Let's go like that. Okay, now I think I'm going to use my cloud stamp in here just for a little bit of an extra texture in here. This doesn't come. I have a different cloud in here, but in my sit here. But because of this translucent aspect, I'm going to try to do something a little bit different in the background, because we're going to take advantage of the back, the back of this paper. Okay, now here's my question. I'm wondering if I should stamp this cloud on the back or on the front. Okay, now since I'm doing this in a very dark color, black, and it's also a very thick ink, pigment ink, I'm going to really blot off the edge of this, okay? I'm taking off a pretty, good amount. And then what I'm going to do is stamp it out down here. Now, I'm not certain if I want to do this on the front or the back. If I do it on the back, it'll look a little bit farther in the distance. I don't know, we can do it both, too. When I'm choosing, the front or the back on the vellum of my imagery, in some ways it could be either. Now, I'm not going to put the foreground elements on the back because I want those to be, fairly dark. I don't want them to be, a lighter version, because things that are darker usually represent things that are a little bit closer to us, because we're looking through fog and, reflected light off of things, and, that's what the translucent vellum tends to give us, okay? So, a little bit darker on the back. Lighter in the distance tends to work a little bit better as far as landscapes go. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of a perimeter with this, okay? Or not a little bit, maybe a lot. A big-time perimeter with this cloud. And every time I do it, because I'm stamping it in black, if I was doing this in like a pale baby blue or something like that, I don't really need to wipe off the edge, but, it is a darker ink, and it's thicker, so I want to transition this going from wet to dry, so it's stamping from dark to light, and that way you don't get these hard edges like that. It goes for any of the stamps. You can always just kind of wipe off part of those transitions so that they stamp lighter. I have a video on that. Okay, now I'm going to put some of this on my horizon too, like this, okay? Easiest mask in the world. Just take a piece of paper and go like this. All right? Undermask slightly, because you are stamping, our piece of paper is very thin, but nevertheless, it is a ridge. So you undermask a little bit. Okay, now every time I do this, I'm overlapping my previous cloud and slightly tilting it, okay? I'm changing the angle. You can tilt it either way. Okay, now when I do this one, see, I'm going to go like this. And then the next one will be like this, and this, okay? So on and so forth. I could stop at any time. You can just have those clouds right there, but I tend to think that kind of framing off the design looks a little bit more contained. So if I have clouds on this side, I'll probably do it on this side too. You can go with some clouds on the front of the paper and on the back of the paper. Maybe that would give it even more of a illusion of depth within the clouds. I don't know. Okay. But see this? I'm not getting these hard edges on the top here because I've wiped off that edge. Okay. Okay, now here's the thing about this cloud. See this right here? Right here, when I'm doing this, I'm stamping it where they're being top lit. But I'm going to have the light coming out from in here, right? So if I have a cloud up here, those clouds are now bottom lit because the light is coming from underneath the clouds. So you can see those billows. The billows kind of always face the direction of your light source. All right, and one more right here. Okay, go like that or so. All right. How's that for a dramatic look? Okay. I just have to wash this off the next time if I use like baby blue on it or something like that. Okay, let's see. Let's start to tone this design. Let's see if I have a old cotton ball. I think I could use this one again. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a perimeter application of the same ink, okay? Now, I don't want to just go hard black like this, okay? I want to do it a little bit more of a transition, okay? So I'm going like this. So you can see where I'm doing it. I'm doing it kind of off paper too. See that? And I'm just kind of lightly dabbing it in. On vellum, it almost feels like I'm adding kind of a powdered application. It feels like this is like really dry. And you're just applying like, you know, like a dry powder makeup or something like that. It's kind of interesting. Now see, I'm not going all the way into my cloud. I still have it, these clouds kind of lighter on the top, okay? Or lighter in the center, I guess you could say. Not necessarily the top. On the clouds underneath, the lighting is, you know, on the bottom of the cloud. So in other words, where the billows are illuminated, I leave them light. I like to, these waves in here, there's lighter areas on these waves. So I like to, let's see if I can make this a little bit more narrow and come into these areas and add some tone into those spaces. Okay. I'll add a little bit of tone to my seaside cove as well. I like to have it where there's some lighting on the surface of the water, so I'll go a lighter area in here, and then I can come in from here, from the two sides, and kind of add that shading from the outside in, okay? So that this area in the center there remains light, so you have the light on the water, okay? It's easier to see it without all that stuff going on in the background. Ooh, that's way too dark. Let's wipe some of that off. I'm going to wipe some of it off while, you know, it's still wet. And it's not going to come off like foil or something like that. Foil, you can wipe it right off, but on this you can just kind of, you know, remove some of it and spread it around. I like to go quite a bit darker on the four corners to really frame, to create a vignette which frames off the composition nicely. All right. Let's take a look here and see what we have. It's hard for me to even see what we have sometime while we have all that, you know, kind of texture on my paper. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now let's add in some additional tones. Okay, let's go with some color. I'm finding that on this Canson vellum, I don't have any problem with inks drying. Now I'm using Brilliance, which will dry on anything, but things like dye-based inks, you know, I haven't had any problems with it drying so far. A lot of people, well, not a lot, but I don't know, I think 3 or 4 people said, hey, you know, I've tried media on my vellum and it just won't dry, so how'd you get it to dry? Well, I didn't do anything. Now, I did heat set one of my impressions that was done in a very wet Brilliance, and because I wanted to work on it, you know, immediately, I heat set, okay. But otherwise, I mean, it's drying fine. Okay, now I'm going to color the ocean, I think, from the back here, maybe? That being said, we'll add a little tone to the back here. I'll add some to the front as well, I think, but while I think this is, pretty dry, it still might smudge a little bit. So we're adding a little tinge of this. Now this is a really light blue, so I can really go heavy with it if I chose to, but let's not go too heavy right now. Okay. Let's add quite a bit in the four corners. Okay. You can go a little bit more than what you think looks good, because you're doing it in the back, so this super light blue is going to be even lighter when we look at it from the front. Okay. Alright, I never know what this is looking like until I kind of flip it over. You can really barely see the blue. There's just a slight tinge to it. Okay, now let's go ahead and use some of this on the front and see how this goes, okay? No problem, I'm picking up a little bit of that black on here, but not too much. It's almost like doing black and white photo tinting, back in the old days. I mean, hardly anyone ever did that, okay? I don't know if you were someone that took, black and white photos and had, photo tinting inks and then tinted your, things, giving it kind of a nostalgic, well, colorized photo look. But this is kind of in the spirit of that. All right. All right, now what I'm going to do on this, I think, I'm going to take advantage of this textured surface, and I'm going to use some colored pencils on it, okay? We'll just go with some blues, all right? Now what am I doing here? I'm kind of looking for areas that are a little bit darker on the design. And I'm reiterating that, okay? So if there's lighter areas, I'm not going over it too much. I mean, I'm using this very lightly in some cases. I mean, you can go for a heavier application, okay? But this is what you want to do with all your media, If you want to really push the possibilities of them, what you do is you use them at 100%, but then you also use them in a transition down to, 1% or whatever, okay? And that way you can really maximize everything that you have. Not just colored pencils, I'm talking black ink. You can get all the variations of gray down to nothing, white with it, okay? Or 1% gray. So instead of buying like a pen or a pad and saying, okay, what color do you have? Well, you have rich cocoa, memento, or you know what I mean, whatever it might be. But in application, you have every color from that rich cocoa down to, a pale beige or something like that, depending on how you utilize it, okay? So instead of, one hue, you have, 100 values of that hue. So you can just take advantage of your application technique and ability to really expand on the range of values of each hue that you have. Okay, now in here, in these waves, I'm kind of going underneath these waves. I'm going into the darker areas. Hopefully give them a little bit more volume and mass. what I mean by volumes is, I mean, I have the shadows in here, so things look a little bit more dimensional, okay? But when you add those extra shadows down here, you enrich the existing, you know, black and white pen and ink look, okay? And now you're involving colored, what represents colored light hitting the surface. Okay, because that's what that blue represents. It represents, you know, the colored light. You know, it's light reflecting off of that surface and, you know, reflecting back to our eyes. You know, because water's not necessarily blue. If you looked at this in a sunset or something like that, you know, the water's not going to be blue. It'll be, you know, the colors of the sunset, right? So that's what that represents. So you can see these waves down here getting a little bit more there's more volumes in them, you know what I mean, in terms of kind of a three-dimensional aspect of it. There's a little bit of turquoise, you know, it's a little bit of a warmer green. Let's try that down here. Or warmer blue, blue-green. Okay, I still want this area light, so, you know, don't darken it in too much, okay? You can use this version of it. You don't have to use this version, okay? I should do all these little, you know, scribbles off to the side. Okay, this is going with a darker hue to begin with, okay? But still, just use a nice light touch. And you can always go darker. Now with this, yeah, you can remove it if you put too much. You can erase it or whatever. Kind of, you know, it's not like graphite where you're erasing it, but it'll come out. But, you know, why not just kind of take it slower, you know, so you don't get kind of these undesirable touches to begin with. So what I do is I just do a very light stroke. If I like it, then I just keep going, and I can add more in repetition, or, you know, if I know that I want that there and I want it dark, then, you know, then go dark. Do it through repetition, do it through pressure, whatever you want. Okay, now see on Lighthouse, I'll kind of darken, you know, the darker side of it, you know, with some additional dark tone. Darker color in the darker areas, maybe. I'm putting it over the black. I mean, hardly any of it is reading just as straight blue, but it looks like a richer black to me. You know, it's just it's a temperature, you know, there's a slight temperature of blue in those clouds right there. All right. Let's go with a little bit of brown. There's a slight area of a little bit of sand down here. I can add some of that. Kind of add a warm tinge to some of these areas. Maybe some of the rocks, you know. You know, but I won't put too much. I'm going to put a little bit of a green right in here. Maybe there's some seaweed growing on these rocks. And just add a tinge of warmth into that space. You know, but it's pretty subtle, though. It's just, I don't know, it's a change in hue, or temperature, actually. Okay, now where's my black? Here's black. All right, let's see. Let's do a little bit of coloring from the back. You can kind of add this to the back and then see if you like it, and then if you like it, then you can add more to the front. You know, and make it even darker. This will just give it a little bit of slighter slightly more of a, I don't know, value change. Unlike the front will do, much more. Okay. Okay, so 4 corners maybe. All right. Yeah, I think it, darkened it. It's a real, it darkened it in a real smooth way though too. I think it just blends in, even if my colored pencil technique isn't the greatest, which it isn't. It looks pretty smooth from the front, no matter, how much I did back here. So you don't need to pull out your Gamsol and all that if you color the back. You can use that too, though. Not against any type of methodology or techniques. Use it all. Especially if you learned how to do all those types of things. Why not? Let's hit some of this down here in the underside of the waves, underneath the crests. All right. Looks fairly dimensional that way, I think. Let's hit a little bit from the front too. Kind of darkening down here, creating a little bit of a shadow from the lighthouse. But it's just, it's a very, it's a 10% value of this black. Let's try some other things on this one too. All right, now the biggest thing is, okay, I have a piece of paper right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make my light beam coming from that lighthouse, okay? Let's see if I have enough room here. Yeah, I'll just do one from right here. So, let's see. I'll create a focal point, like right here. Okay? And we'll just do it like this. Okay. All right. Oops, I cut off my focal point. Let's see. Okay, it's right there. And then we'll go this way. Let's see, is that going to be long enough here? Yeah, okay. I'll show you what I'm doing here now. Okay, so this is going to go, this is the back of, no, this is the front of my card. All right, so this is what this is hopefully going to look like. It's going to look like this. I'm trying to decide if I want to do this in paper or if I want to do it in just ink. Not sure. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's cut off some of this right here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Go about like that. All right, let's see, crafter's tape. I haven't even used these yet. Did that go? I don't even know if that was rolling. Here, let me see. Oh, okay, here we go. I haven't used these, folks. This is the first time I've used this thing. I guess you do have to press harder. Okay, there we go. Oh my gosh, that sticks like iron. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's the front, and that's the back. All right, I gotta be careful of this piece right here. All right, and we're going like this. This way. Okay. Whew, that is sticky. Okay, let's cut some of this off right here. That is some good glue. Crafter's tape, Ad Tech Permanent. All right, now let's start adding in some of our embellishments. And then we'll bring this all together, I think. Hopefully it does. We'll see. I mean, it looks fairly cohesive right now. I don't have a problem with anything that's going on. All right. So let's see. Okay, so we have some ways down. Let's start off with. I'm trying to decide what to start off with. Let's start off with some of the acrylic paint pen, and then we'll go from there. I'm adding some white elements. Okay, so down in these waves, I'm going to create these kind of crashing, splashing wave structures, splash structures, whatever you can call it. If you look right on the designs have these splashes on there, so I'm just kind of reiterating it, adding kind of a lighter element of it. Now, if this was completely in the dark, I wouldn't add this because we're saying, if it was in the dark, you're saying that there's no light over there, so you wouldn't be able to see these splashes. So, and just in general, I'm putting these extra highlights in the light areas, okay? And there's a few areas where there's some crashing waves on the different designs. It kind of brings these whole areas to life in many ways. Now, some of these are sticking out too much, but then I'll blend them in with pigment ink. Like these ones right here especially, they're kind of standing out a little bit too light in, you know, fairly a darker area. Oh, well, that being said, let's try to add some back here. Now, because I've colored over, they're not going to show through, but I think a lot of the media that I've used you know, is fairly opaque, so, but some of it's a little bit more translucent, so we'll see if it, we'll see how it does. I'm still getting used to it, you know, I'm just touching the surface of you know, the possibilities of this medium here. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, now these windows for my lighthouse and the lamp itself, I'm going to illuminate right here. See these windows on the lighthouse like that? What I'm doing is I'm making them opaque so that when I put that dark piece of paper back there, those lights will still show up. Light in the window. Okay. It's really amazing that the heat of my hand really starts to make this vellum kind of ripple on me. It curls. I mean, when it cools down, it flattens right up again, but it's kind of just interesting seeing that, I don't know, whatever phenomenon happen. Okay, so that is that. Let's use some of the white Brilliance ink here. See if I can use this used cotton ball here. 100% cotton. Okay. I wouldn't use the other ones. I've tried it, and I love the use of this one. I find absolutely useless the acrylic ones, the synthetics. Okay, so I'm going to start adding this where light meets dark, okay, to really make some of these clouds a lot more soft and billowy looking. I'm adding very thin, translucent layers of white pigment ink. Okay, I'm not going for a big slathering. I could barely see what I'm doing right now, here, in front of me, okay? It barely shows up. But that means that, you know, I have a lot of control over it because I'm not applying so much so quickly, okay? Okay, right down here on the rocks where I've added those little acrylic paint pen touches, we'll kind of mellow them out. A little bit of tone around them, or on top of them. Alright, this is a little bit too wide a tip. Let's use the Q-tip for some slightly more detailed work. Although it's not real detail, the detail is like the white paint pen, but for pigment ink applications, this is reasonably detailed. I don't work with like a finer tip, than this. You can really make your clouds look really soft and billowy with this extra touch, because in a sense you're kind of adding like this thin layer of translucent vapor that looks illuminated, and that's what clouds are. They're moisture in the air that are being illuminated by light. And when you get all that moisture piled up, then you can see form and whatnot, but it's still not opaque. It's translucent, and where it gets more dissipated at the end, you can add your pigment ink in there like that. Okay, now let's see. Let's kind of give this little lighthouse a little bit. Oh, let's do a backside glow here. And let's see, I got some of that glue here on the front around my light beam. I need to remove that. It's like rubber cement. It comes right off, huh? I don't think it is. It comes off just like it. Okay. I want to make this beam a little bit softer too if I can. I'll see if I can here. I put in a little bit of white next to it in a couple areas at least. Okay, let's take a look here and see what we have going. See what we're working with. I got a little smudge right there in that with my cloud impression. Maybe it was off my finger or something. Let me see if I can kind of get rid of some of that or subdue it somewhat. Boy, that looks terrible down there. When you use that, it really, boy, you can really see your technique. Let me mellow that out a little bit. See, this is one good thing about the pigment ink. You can really kind of blend things in quite a bit after the fact, because it doesn't dry so fast. So you can do it accordingly, or blend in a little bit accordingly. But boy, that sure shows your technique. You can see how kind of haphazard it is in some ways. But that's how you can be if you're just doing it just straight on, to a white piece of paper. But on here, I guess we got to be a little bit more, delicate. Oh, I know what I'll do down here to remedy that very easily. Okay, let's see. Let's get that smudgy area out here a little bit more. Yeah, okay. That. Okay, down here. Let's mellow that out some. Okay, my white accents down there. I mean, it's okay, but it looks really rough. I guess I should have just applied it when I had that black on there. Then I would have done it a little bit more carefully. Okay, so this is just some black brilliance, and my reed stamp down here. It'll give it a little bit more depth, anyways. It's like, shore grass or something. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? Having that close element, and it's kind of framing everything off too. Okay. Let's go ahead and use the sailboat. Holding it down a little bit longer because I do have that Prismacolor underneath it. So this brilliance is stamping on wax. Not the ideal thing to be stamping on, but hopefully the ink transfers just fine if I kind of hold it down for a little bit longer and let that ink transfer over. It kind of starts to set up a little bit usually. And then you get a real clean impression. So if you can stamp on wax, you can almost stamp on anything. As far as a medium goes, so I'm pretty high on the Brilliance Black. I try to be product and company line neutral, but it's really hard to get around the Black Brilliance, or just the Brilliance inks. Okay, I'm not going to do this. I think that looks pretty good just as is up there. But, okay, so that is that. Okay, now these impressions down here might be slightly wet. No, I don't know. That looks like it's set up pretty well, or pretty fast. Okay, so I'm going to add in some additional little touches into here. And let's see if this works. I'll try to make a couple of them kind of have a little bit of a glow to them. I'm doing this on the back side. Yeah, boy, I need some more Q-tips. Yeah, let's see, I have a couple in my little pack here still. I've got a whole bunch of these, but I just haven't brought them to my craft room. Okay, so inking up and putting a little bit around a couple of these. It's hard to tell. I should put the black paper in back of this. As I do this. Oh well, it'll be a surprise to me as well. Okay, let's see what we have here. Yeah, those stars kind of show up a little bit. See down here? You know, all that kind of my haphazard application of my pigmenting. Now, I mean, if I'm doing that now, I can really see what I'm doing here. I was kind of doing it blind before, just on a white piece of paper. But this shows up pretty well. Let's see. I've got a large piece of black gloss here. Let me use some of that right here. I want some of these waves to stand out a little bit more, so I'll color it in from the back, and we'll see if it's revealed on the front side. Yeah, right down there. All right, let's see, get my little smudgy out of there, and this should be done, I think. Let's make these ones a little bit more billowy where they're, where we have that light beam going against the front of them. Maybe these ones will be a little bit more billowy and soft, have a soft kind of illumination on it. All right. I think that's done. I don't know. I think it's pretty done and pretty fun. Let's see what's darker here, this dark blue or the matte black here, where you can see it a little bit more. Oh, I don't know. Okay, so let's take a look here and see. I mean, I could see that beam back there. I could have done that in ink too, and it probably wouldn't show up as much, but see, I have a little bit of a shadow down there. I don't know, it's not revealed a lot. So I'm gonna have to do one of those things where I make some kind of construction for this and have like a slider card or something like that, where I can slide the back in there. But okay, let me change the exposure here a little bit. This is a little bit too light. Okay, this is better exposure for the scene, more indicative of the whatever the light dark values of this. And let's take a look with this piece of dark paper. We have day. And here comes the night. So again, it's just kind of taking advantage of the characteristic of the vellum and that translucency that we can kind of play around with on here. So, I don't know. It's pretty fun to do. I thought I'd just do kind of a basic card, not so much of a Halloween type of scenario where we've changed the theme of it. This is just changing it straight from night and day, going back into one of the sets. So, kind of fun. And made possible by the characteristics of the surface that we're working with. I haven't worked with a translucent surface before. So really having fun playing around with it, and it really opens up a lot of possibilities as far as, getting two kind of cards. I don't know, it's the same card, but it's two different looks for the, in one, attempt or whatever you might say. One application of, I don't know, whatever goes into creating a card. You get two different looks from it. Okay, so anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel, and I hope you give this kind of technique a try. And if you do so, if you feel inclined, I'd love to hear about it. All right, until the next card.